What if the world's oldest wisdom is actually the key to the world's newest technology?
Welcome. Today we are stepping into a story that bridges two worlds, one very old and one very new. We often think of artificial intelligence as something that arrived recently, born in labs and living in silver boxes. But if we look more closely at the heart of Ethiopia's rich history, we find that the spirit of AI has been with us all along. It lives in the way a farmer reads the sky, the way an elder remembers a lineage, and the way a community protects its most precious truths. In this space, we don't see technology as an outsider. Instead, we see it as a collaborative amplifier. Think of indigenous knowledge as the roots of a great tree, deep, nourished by generations, and firm in the soil of our culture. Artificial intelligence is like the rain and the sun. It helps that tree grow taller, reach further, and share its fruit with more people than ever before. Now, when we talk about algorithms, we are really talking about the beautiful stepwise wisdom of our planting calendars. When we talk about pattern recognition, we honor the sharp eyes of our herders and artisans who have classified the world around them for centuries. Our goal is simple yet profound: to build a future that is both modern and rooted. By inviting our elders and knowledge holders to lead the way, we ensure that technology respects our consent, honors our history, and belongs to our people. This isn't just about teaching machines, it's about learning from one another. It's about creating an education system where every child feels that their heritage is not a thing of the past, but the very foundation of the future. So, let's begin this journey together with listening, with kindness, and with the shared belief that the greatest intelligence is the one we build together. I am Dr. Arega Ngozi. Let us now hear what academic scholars have said about my research on this topic.
Welcome back to In Depth with Academia, where we dig into the latest academic research and see what it might mean for you, for your world, and for the future of learning. I'm Richard Price, founder and CEO of Academia EDU, and as always, I'm your host, here to walk us through some really fascinating ideas from today's scholarly community. All right, today's topic is honestly super inspiring. It's a paper by Dr. Arega W. Ngozi that dives into a question with huge implications. Can Indigenous knowledge and artificial intelligence actually work together to transform education in Ethiopia and maybe even beyond? What could it mean if, instead of seeing old wisdom and cutting-edge tech as opposites, we brought them together? Before I get going, just my quick reminder, I'm here to neutrally present what this paper says, not to sell you on any particular vision. Science and scholarship, after all, are ongoing conversations. No single study gives us all the answers. So the problem at the heart of this paper is kind of fascinating. Ethiopian education, like a lot of educational systems around the world, historically centres on national or globalised curricula. sometimes at the cost of local knowledge and context. The big question Dr. Nigasi digs into is, what if you could use technology, specifically AI, to actually preserve, amplify, and help teach Indigenous knowledge, or IK for short? Why should this matter for you or your community? Well, imagine if students learn from knowledge systems that actually reflect their own traditions and landscapes. How would that change motivation or even pride? Let's get into the details. The paper says that Indigenous knowledge, think for example of traditional planting calendars, oral histories, local arts, or livestock care wisdom, is already structured in ways a lot like AI. This surprised me, honestly. Apparently, many Indigenous systems use rules like, if X and Y, then do Z, which is basically an algorithm. Farmers, herders, artisans, they classify things, make observations, refine their skills over years, much like pattern recognition in machine learning. The knowledge is dense, contextual, and, well, locally tuned. But okay, it's not just about similarities. Dr. Nigasi's main argument is that AI can help document these local knowledges, turning oral stories, farming practices, and even artistic traditions into searchable, teachable resources. AI tools can, for example, record oral history, organize it, translate it, and adapt it to different age groups or learning styles. Imagine a classroom in Ethiopia where kids learn not just from international textbooks, but also from their grandparents' stories, backed up by technology. I mean, wouldn't that be kind of amazing? The kicker is that when Indigenous knowledge is combined with AI, you can get curriculum materials that are both relevant to the local context and scalable or adaptive for bigger educational systems. You could personalize learning, support teachers with locally informed lesson plans, and even connect what happens in the classroom to actual livelihoods and community practices. It's about building education that's modern, but also deeply, deeply rooted. Kind of like having the best of both worlds, right? There's more. The methods Dr. Nigasi suggests are ethical and participatory. He's not saying, let's just upload everything and call it done. Instead, the paper talks about community leadership, co-designing how knowledge is gathered, marked with proper attribution, and used. There are lots of safeguards mentioned, protecting against bias, misappropriation, and making sure knowledge holders actually benefit and retain control. Honestly, when you hear about data being used without consent, this is a breath of fresh air. For practical examples, the paper mentions digitized planting calendars, predictive weather models to help with farming, and even searchable archives of local crafts or rituals for education. Plus, participatory mapping and local validation so that whatever is developed actually fits the communities involved. Now, quick digression, this part about oral history reminds me of how my own grandmother used to tell stories about how to choose the perfect tomato. She had this bizarre theory about the sound a ripe tomato should make, which frankly, I never mastered. And now, of course, I wish someone had recorded that, you know? So, maybe there's something to this idea. But, back on track, this isn't about saying, hey, tech solves everything. Far from it. Dr. Nigasi stresses the importance of working with communities, never just imposing outside solutions. The big thing for all of us is that academic research, papers like this one, aren't about absolute truths. They're invitations to think, to explore, and to rethink what's possible. So, for you listening in, maybe you work in education, maybe you're a parent, a student, a technologist, or just someone who cares about cultural heritage. What does all this mean? Well, it means you have a stake in this. The future of education might not be a choice between technology and tradition after all, but rather a combination that empowers communities in new ways. That's all for this episode of In Depth with Academia. I hope you found Dr. Nigasi's work as thought-provoking as I did. Remember, I'm just your host here, sharing one perspective from the evolving academic landscape. Thanks for listening, and keep questioning what education and knowledge itself could really be. See you next time.
It should play a soulful slide in the ear. It should play a soulful slide in the ear. It shouldn't be a heavy beat, but drums sind bässen, but drums sind bässen, but drums sind bässen, but tabessa mai, but tabessa.
The paper we're diving into today is Indigenous Knowledge and AI Ethiopian Education by Dr. Arega W. Ngusi. I have to say, just that got me thinking. Like, is there really a way to bring traditions and, ultra-modern tech together in the classroom?
Right? I mean, when you first hear indigenous knowledge and artificial intelligence side by side, it almost sounds like opposite worlds. But Dr. Ngusi's core question actually pretty clever. He's asking how these can reinforce each other, especially in making Ethiopian education more relevant, resilient, and rooted.
Yeah, and that's a huge deal. I guess years now, educational reforms have kind of defaulted to Western approaches or generic tech fixes, which sometimes really what local students and teachers actually need day to day. So this idea that indigenous, like histories, traditional agriculture, local languages, doesn't have to survive them, but can amplified, protected by AI? Well, that's pretty radical.
Absolutely. And what struck me was how the paper reframes artificial intelligence. Like, Dr. Ngusi argues that a lot of what we call AI concepts, algorithms, recognition, governance rules, already baked into practices. If you think about it, a planting calendar or an elder's step-by-step livestock care, it's kind of a set of rules or procedures, just like a simple.
That part totally clicked for me. For instance, when the paper talks about pattern recognition, farmers and herders observing animals over generations, they've sort of trained themselves the way an algorithm learns examples, but it's done in a totally human, embodied way. Dr. Ngusi goes further. The indigenous knowledge isn't just to be digitized, actually a living form of distributed intelligence. So embedding that in curricula with AI tools that respect local categories and ethics could, well, potentially, make education way meaningful for Ethiopian students. But none of this is straightforward. The safeguards and methods the paper outlines feel important. Like, he's big on community and consent. So AI tools shouldn't just scrape data and run. There needs to be provenance, proper credit, and crucially, shared benefits for indigenous communities. Remind me actually of a news story last month about data misuse in cultural archives? I'm here.
No, that's a good point. This is trying to batter those protections. It turns into another case of tech extracting value and giving little in return, especially dangerous when dealing with as delicate as oral traditions, local languages. I thought the proof of concept examples really grounded this, though, like digit planting that with weather models or decision support apps built on elders' knowledge. Those were practical. Also, I appreciated the paper doesn't pretend AI is some magical fix. It's more about partnership. Schools and communities to get to the curriculum, ontologies reflect local perspectives, evaluation is a Tory. It's a slow, collaborative process.
That's the biggest takeaway me, actually. That research stuff like AI education isn't just about finding the answer. It's a starting point to rethink how we value local wisdom and how tech can, if we're careful, amplify it of erasing it. Right. So if you're someone working in education, tech, or just interested in how your communities could this paper is an invitation to start a conversation, co-create, and, well, maybe see both AI and indigenous knowledge with fresh eyes.
It definitely left optimistic about what's possible when we blend the new with the old, thoughtfully. And, also kind of wishing I paid more attention to my grandmother's gardening rules.
Same here. So here's to learning across generations and finding smarter ways forward, together.
Thank you for reading, and thank you in advance for your ideas and energy. I'm looking for educators, tech researchers, and community leaders to join this collaborative journey. How can we better integrate local wisdom into our digital future? Let's discuss in the comments.
should play a soulful. He should play a soulful. He should play a soulful. Hey, 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 should play soulful. He should play a soulful.